Welcome to Trending Unpacked, the podcast where we break down what the world is talking about and why it matters. Lately, the internet has been just completely captivated by a story, one that kind of mixes fascination with, well, a pretty primal fear. I'm talking about Jessica Radcliffe's encounter, the one with the orca back in 2025. It got reported everywhere. And this wasn't just, some story that went viral. It really kicked off conversations all over the globe because, well, it taps into something really unsettling, doesn't it? Something deeply human. Those rare times when humans and powerful wild animals have these high-stakes interactions, especially orcas, the ones we often call killer whales, which might be a bit misleading sometimes. So our goal today isn't just to rehash the headlines. We want to really pull apart the layers here, look at the facts as they came out, the wild theories that just exploded online afterwards, and maybe most importantly, what this whole thing tells us about, well, our relationship with nature today. It's about understanding the mix of awe and, frankly, alarm that this one encounter sparked.
Exactly. And you're right. This incident, thankfully, is highly unusual in its intensity. But it really makes us ask some pretty basic questions, doesn't it, about our place in their world, in the huge territories where these incredible, but yeah, powerful animals actually live and hunt. It kind of forces us to look at that balance between, watching wildlife and maybe accidentally stepping over line.
Okay, so let's get into the incident itself. Jessica Radcliffe. Her name just became, well, almost instantly recognizable after her story broke in early 2025. She wasn't like some extreme sports person or anything. She was described as an experienced solo sailor, used to being alone on the ocean, the demands of that. And her encounter, it wasn't just seeing an orca swim by. It was described as a close, dangerous, and pretty long encounter. With an orca, well, she was way out there, hundreds of miles off the coast of, I think, of the Pacific Northwest, on her small boat. What made it so gripping and why it went viral so fast was the details she shared. It sounded terrifying. Just one orca, not a whole pod, interacting with her boat. She said it wasn't like a full-on attack, but more like persistent nudging, circling, creating this real sense of threat, of being totally vulnerable out there. And the key thing, the part that really fueled the fascination and the fear online, was that she survived it. Yeah, and the specifics of what she went through, the things she shared and that the news picked up on, those became the talking points online. We're talking like the exact location, the weather that day, the kind of boat she had, and how long it lasted, almost an hour apparently, which feels like an eternity in that situation. These weren't just dry facts. They became the core of trending topics everywhere. TikTok, YouTube, X, Twitter, you name it. People were like analyzing the shaky video she took frame by frame, listening to her voice, debating what the orca meant by it all. It felt intensely personal, her story, but it sparked this huge collective conversation.
It's so important, though, to ground this in what we actually know about orcas, or orcas. They are absolutely apex predators, top of the ocean food chain, no question. But what really makes them stand out, and what we're still, frankly, only starting to understand fully, is their incredible intelligence. Their communication is amazingly complex, and their hunting techniques are so strategic, so sophisticated. They're not just powerful, they are genuinely smart creatures. They live in these complex social groups, pods, right, often spanning generations. We even know about different dialects between pods, like accents almost, and specific calls that seem to function like names. And their hunting strategies, wow. Coordinating to herd fish into tight bait balls, working together to wash seals off ice. It's remarkable. But here's the other critical piece. How incredibly rare incidents like this, involving wild orcas and humans, actually are. Now, we have seen tragic incidents in captivity, sadly, often linked to the stress, the unnatural settings of marine parks. But a wild orca attacking a human without being provoked, statistically, it's almost vanishingly rare, an anomaly. And that distinction is crucial for understanding why the Radcliffe story hits such a nerve. It kind of went against our usual understanding, maybe a bit human-centric, that wild orcas are mostly indifferent, maybe curious, but seldom aggressive towards us. It's a really stark reminder that they are wild animals, not tame.
And the media, naturally, played a huge role in shaping how we all saw this. Moving it beyond just her personal story, the coverage really amped up the drama, didn't it? The headlines, the descriptions, often using that loaded killer whale name. It turned what happened to Jessica Radcliffe into this much bigger public discussion. Suddenly, it wasn't just about her experience. It became about, well, our activities in orca territory. Are we encroaching too much? Are we being responsible? Or just, tourists in their space? Questions that maybe used to be in niche environmental groups suddenly became mainstream arguments online.
Yeah, what's really fascinating is how this one event, as rare as it likely was, became such a powerful symbol, a symbol of nature's unpredictability. It's humbling, really. It highlights the risks that are just inherent in things like ecotourism or any activity that puts us close to powerful wild animals in their home. We can try to be respectful, try to minimize our impact, sure, but we can't forget their fundamental wildness. The Radcliffe encounter just drew that line between awe and danger so clearly and showed how fast it can blur when we enter their world, a world with very different rules.
So, okay, with all that context, how did the internet, that massive, noisy digital space, actually process this? The social media spin was pretty much instant, wasn't it? And
Yeah.
intense. We saw these viral reactions going back and forth like crazy. On one hand, total awe at the orca's power. Some people were almost romanticizing it, like an ocean avenger kind of thing. And then sharp criticism, even anger, aimed at what some saw as human recklessness for being out there. Memes were everywhere, some celebrating her survival, others making dark jokes about orca revenge. The videos, the discussions, they weren't just sharing news. They became places for people to sort of project their own ideas about nature, control, our place in it all.
And if you look at it from, say, a conservation perspective, well, many didn't frame it as an attack at all. For them, it was a really stark, urgent reminder. Orcas must be respected as wild animals, period. They aren't here for our amusement. They aren't pets we can just casually interact with whenever we feel like it. So this view really supports the need for clear boundaries, for ethical tourism rules, for carefully managing how humans operate in their habitats. For many conservationists, it was like a dramatic visual for the argument against marine parks, against anything that treats these animals like commodities or spectacles. It underscored their right to just be left alone, really.
And of course, like clockwork with anything huge online, the conspiracy theories started popping up too. You had some corners of the internet starting to claim the whole thing was exaggerated or maybe even staged for attention. People were, pixel peeping the video, analyzing every word Jessica Radcliffe said, looking for tiny inconsistencies. It tapped right into that whole online speculation culture we see so much, where every big event, especially one that stirs up emotions, gets picked apart for hidden agendas, fake narratives, the idea that most people are just sheeple buying the official story.
It's almost a default reaction now for some communities, a symptom of wider distrust, maybe. And this really gets to the heart of the cultural symbolism of orcas. It's fascinating because they exist in our minds with this deep paradox, right? On one side, they're seen as these majestic guardians of the sea, intelligent, wise, almost spiritual figures, especially in some indigenous cultures. But on the other side, they're the dangerous, unpredictable predator. That killer whale name really evokes fear. That duality is baked into how we think about them. And it feeds directly into these bigger debates about how humans and wildlife can possibly coexist. How do we share a planet with creatures that are so powerful, so smart, but also so fundamentally wild, so beyond our control? This encounter just laid that tension bare, which leads to a really important question, I think. What does this whole Jessica Radcliffe story really tell us about human-animal interactions now, in our increasingly connected and crowded world? It really emphasizes that we're dealing with incredibly complex beings here, not just simple creatures driven by instinct. Orca intelligence, their social lives, how they learn, how they adapt, all of that has huge implications for how we should think about them and interact with them. If they can learn, adapt, maybe even choose to interact with us in ways we don't expect. Well, that really raises the ethical stakes, doesn't it? It demands more than just understanding. It demands a really deep respect for their autonomy, their own lives.
So, okay, thinking beyond just the buzz of a viral story that held our attention for a week or two, what does it all mean for us, for you listening? The deeper message here about our relationship with the wild. It feels like it has so many layers. Is it about respecting boundaries? Maybe boundaries we didn't even realize were there, lines drawn by nature itself? Is it about truly getting the power dynamics when we venture into their world? Realizing we aren't always the top dog? Or maybe it's just about that powerful, sometimes scary pull of the unknown, that desire we have to explore, to experience raw nature, even if it means facing our own smallness. And why should you care about this, beyond just remembering a dramatic news item? Because these kinds of incidents, even though they're rare, they offer really valuable lessons, I think. They can really boost our environmental awareness, make us think harder about responsible ways to interact with nature, about the consequences of what we do in the oceans, about the ethics of how we view and treat wild animals. And honestly, it sharpens our critical thinking too.
It forces us to question what we see online, to separate fact from speculation, and to understand the complicated stories that build up around these big events. It helps us be more informed, maybe more thoughtful participants in these global conversations.
Absolutely. Ultimately, the Radcliffe encounter serves as this really vivid, unforgettable example of that constant tension. The tension between our human curiosity, our drive to explore, and the really vital, urgent need to preserve and respect natural places and the animals that live there. It's a powerful reminder that if we want true coexistence, it requires more than just appreciating nature's beauty. It requires a deep fundamental respect for the wildness that remains and understanding that we're just one part of a much bigger untamed picture.
That's a really powerful thought to end on, how just one single rare event can ripple outwards and really change how we collectively see nature's power and maybe our own somewhat fragile place within it all. Thank you for joining us for this exploration today. We'll be back soon to break down another trending topic. Next time, we're looking at ChatGPT-5, the future of AI conversations. Until then, keep questioning, keep exploring.